Inghild Hross podcast. I'm sorry, do I know you? Well, you do know my name, though you don't remember that I belong to it. I am Jeff, and Jeff means me, and it's where we explore the rich history and lore behind some of the most iconic companions and legendary characters in mythology, folklore, and fantasy. Are you ready to embark on a journey into the world of myths and legends? Because I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. Now let me share a little story with you before we get started. Did you know that the word Hross actually means horse in Old Norse? It's no surprise then that Tolkien, who drew heavily from Norse mythology, included such magnificent creatures as the Mearas in his epic tale. Today, we're going to be exploring the world of Middle-earth and its incredible magical companions. And let's be real, who doesn't love a good magical companion? I mean, I'm pretty sure we all secretly wish we had a loyal dragon or majestic unicorn by our side. But today, we're going to be focusing on the Mearas, the incredible magical horses of Middle-earth. Now, I don't know about you, but I've always had a soft spot for horses. There's just something so majestic and powerful about them. And every time I was near one when I was younger, I just felt like I was off in my imagination, riding them in some fantasy epic adventure. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. Enough about me and my crazy daydreaming. I mean, it happens from time to time with things like this. But the Mearas take that to a whole new level. These horses possess incredible speed, strength, and intelligence. And they are so rare that only the greatest of beings that were most worthy are sometimes deemed worthy enough to ride them. And of course, we can't talk about the Mearas without delving into the story of Shadowfax, the most famous of them all, and the loyal companion of Gandalf the Grey. I mean, seriously, if you're going to have a magical horse, you might as well have one that's also incredibly intelligent and can understand human speech, right? And when I think of Middle-earth, I can't help but imagine myself sitting in a cozy hobbit hole in an armchair by the fire, sipping on some mead and snacking on some lembas bread. And what better company to have than a loyal and magical companion by your side? So, are you ready to explore the mythology, history, and symbolism behind the Mearas? If so, then join me on this quest, and let's find out what it means to truly share an adventure. The world of Middle-earth is waiting for us, and the Mearas are ready to show us what they're made of. Then, let's saddle up and ride into your very own world of adventure. I mean, who knows? Maybe by the end of this episode, you'll be convinced that you need to buy a magical horse of your own. Or really, I need to buy one. So remember, this adventure is not just mine. It's yours too. So if you're into it, grab that bag of Longbottom Leaf, and let's get into this epic podcast together, shall we? Well, that's decided. It will be very good for you, and most amusing for me. I shall inform the others. You will have to do with our pocket handkerchiefs, and a great many other things before I reach our journey's end. Double Baggins, you were born to the rolling hills and little rivers of the Shire, but home is now behind you. The world is ahead. Now, before we delve into this story, let me share a little anecdote about the companionship of horses. Horses are truly remarkable creatures that have captivated us for centuries, and for good reason. Their intelligence, magical presence, and ability to form a special bond with humans are just a few of the many reasons why we are drawn to them. When we are near horses, we can't help but feel a sense of calm, and this is not just a coincidence. Horses have the ability to read our emotions and can recognize a smile, and even smile back. They are incredibly sensitive animals that can feel the beating of our hearts, and if the rider is happy, the horse will know. One of the most fascinating things about horses is their social nature. They have large, expressive eyes that seem to draw us in, and they have the ability to form bonds with other species, including humans. They can even remember our emotions and experiences, which is a testament to their intelligence. When we look into a horse's eyes, we feel a strong connection. It's almost as if they can see into our souls. Horses have a way of captivating us with their beauty and grace and their gentle nature. It's truly enchanting. Horses have been a part of the human journey for centuries, and they will continue to be close companions by our sides, and forever in our hearts. The horse is so many things in a single creature. A balance of gentleness and power, a free spirit that's both wild and calm. And it's amazing to think that such a sensitive animal can have such a profound impact on our lives. But that's the magic of horses. They are a true gift to us all. And as you may know, horses have been used in therapeutic settings for many years, particularly in the treatment of mental health conditions, such as anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Studies have shown that spending time with horses can have a positive impact on our mental and emotional well-being. For example, research has demonstrated that interacting with horses can lower our levels of the stress hormone cortisol, which can help us feel more relaxed and calm. Furthermore, engaging in activities with horses, such as grooming or riding, can increase our levels of oxytocin, a hormone that is associated with social bonding and feelings of happiness and contentment. This can help to combat feelings of loneliness or isolation and promote a sense of connection with others. In addition, horses are incredibly perceptive animals and are able to pick up on subtle cues from humans, such as changes in body language or mood. And this can make them particularly effective in helping people with autism or other communication difficulties to learn social skills and improve their ability to interact with others. And throughout The Lord of the Rings, horses play a vital role in the lives of the characters we will meet. As we journey through Middle-earth, we will see how these majestic animals serve as steadfast companions, powerful steeds, and reminders of the bond between humans and animals. As we discuss the role of horses in The Lord of the Rings, it's worth noting that today is a special day. In fact, it's even more a special day because I just realized it's Tolkien Reading Day, a day dedicated to celebrating the incredible works of J.R.R. Tolkien. And it's amazing how things sometimes fall into place, right? Because in today's episode, we've already been discussing one of my favorite topics, horses, particularly the Mearas. This realization adds a whole new level of excitement to our conversation. Even though this episode won't be released until a later date, I'm excited to capture the magic of this day in our discussion. The stories woven by Tolkien are a gateway to otherworldly realms that stir our imaginations and evoke a sense of awe. In these enchanted lands, we hear the thunderous charge of Mearas and the clash of swords that echo through the air. These epic tales of the struggle between good and evil inspire us to create our own heroic characters and mythical worlds, where bravery and selflessness reign supreme. Through Tolkien's stories, we are reminded of the limitless potential of our imagination and the timeless values of heroism and valor that continue to captivate us. But enough daydreaming for today. Let's honor Tolkien's legacy of imagination by exploring the world of horses in his works. As we embark on our journey to explore the world of horses in Middle-earth, let's raise a glass of mead, or perhaps a carrot, or an apple for those feeling horsey, just as a road ahead of us goes ever on, leading away from the door where our journey began. We too must follow it, if we can. "This is it. This is what?" said Frodo. "If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been." "Come on, Sam. Remember what Bilbo used to say. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to." Well, we are on a grand adventure together, aren't we? And like any good adventure, we must begin with a tale. A tale of a magnificent creature, swift as the wind and strong as steel. A creature so grand that even the mightiest of warriors would stop and stare in awe. I speak, of course, of Nahar. Now, Nahar's story is one that stretches back to the very beginning of Arda, when the first notes of the great music rang out across the void, and when the world was young, and the stars had just been set alight. And as we journey together through this tale, we'll come to learn of Nahar's many great deeds, and the important role he played in the shaping of the world we know today. The tale of Nahar is a unique story, and it's fascinating how a creature so majestic could also be so mysterious. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Nahar, he was the horse of Arome. In the mythology of Middle-earth, Arome was one of the Valar, and a key figure in the creation and shaping of Middle-earth, and the world. Arome was known as the Huntsman of the Valar, or the Lord of the Forests, and the Great Rider. Nahar was described as being a magnificent white horse, with a flowing mane and tail, which glowed like the sun, and his hooves were covered in gold, and his eyes sparkled like stars. And he was said to have a special bond with Arome that allowed him to understand Arome's commands. And during the first age of Middle-earth, the Valar had created the two trees of Valinor, which were the source of all light in the world. The trees were guarded by two Maiar, Melion and Lorien. But Melkor, who was also known as Morgoth, a Vala who had turned to evil, managed to capture and destroy them with the great spider on Galliant, the mother of Shelob, which pretty much could be the thought of nightmares. And the destruction of the two trees plunged the world into darkness, and the only remaining sources of light were the stars and the Silmarils, three jewels that had been created by the elf Fëanor. Throughout Tolkien's Legendarium, the story of Nahar, Arome's horse, is intertwined with the events that shaped the fate of Middle-earth. When the elves first awoke, Nahar, the horse of Arome, gave a great neighing that brought authenticity and vividness to the scene. It was not an aggressive sound, but one of an excitement and interest, as if to say, "Who are you? I know you're out there." Arome and Nahar stood very still, and as they listened, they heard many distant voices singing. In the starlight, the scene of the shadowy forest came alive, and the elves were drawn to the light of the Silmarils. Tolkien used the horse to move away from a formulaic fairy tale-like retelling of events, and instead drew the reader into the point of view of Arome. The forest was silent except for the predictable ambient sylvan sounds and sense of nature. Nahar's role in this moment made it all the more powerful. Later on, after the darkening of the great trees, Arome and Nahar went on a hunt for Melkor, who had caused the destruction. Nahar's neighing and Arome's horn-blowing made all the monsters and creatures of Melkor flee in fear. This scene captures the magical moment of the elves awakening, the power of Nahar, and the events that followed. It shows how Tolkien used Nahar to bring life and authenticity to a distant make-believe world and invite the reader into the story. And as Nahar was running like the wind, you would hear a thunderous sound from his hooves, which were now glowing with a brilliant light. And the light from Nahar's hooves was said to be so bright that it could illuminate even the darkest places. And it was believed to be a reflection of the light of the two trees. And it's possible that they captured the light that was coming from Nahar's hooves, which was pretty much fire, into the Silmarils. Pretty epic, right? And during the chaos, Fëanor became obsessed with the jewels and refused to share them with anyone. And his actions eventually led to a series of tragic events known as the kinslaying, in which the elves turn against each other. The story of Nahar, Arome's horse, is intertwined with the events surrounding the destruction of the two trees, the awakening of the elves, and the possible connection of the creation of the Silmarils. Nahar was a symbol of beauty and grace of the natural world, and Arome's quest to capture Melkor represented the corruption and destruction that threatened to engulf Middle-earth. Also, the light that emanated from Nahar's hooves was a reminder of the beauty that had been lost with the destruction of the two trees, and it served as a beacon of hope for the elves and all those who opposed Melkor's tyranny. The creation of the Silmarils and the kinslaying that followed were tragic events that ultimately led to the downfall of many of the great heroes of Middle-earth. However, Nahar's role in the story served as a reminder of the power of loyalty, beauty, and grace to triumph over evil. And his shining hooves became a symbol of the enduring light that could never be fully extinguished from the world. In addition to the association of Arome with his great steed Nahar, his relationship to nature connects him to other beasts as well. Also, Boromir's famed horn in The Lord of the Rings is linked to Arome through a breed of mythical beasts, the kind of Ara, a species of oxen that lived in fields in Rhûn, near the Sea of Rhûn, and they were hardier and wilder than any other oxen in Middle-earth. It's kind of cool because I have Boromir's horn. Nahar's loyalty and bravery are a testament to the special bond between humans and animals that Tolkien so often wrote about. Like Shadowfax and the other Mearas, Nahar represents the idea that horses are not just beasts of burden, but beings with their own personalities and emotions. Man, what a story. The tales of Middle-earth are truly wondrous, and the lineage of the Mearas is no exception. We have already heard about Nahar, the horse of Arome, but there is still much to learn about the noble ancestry of these great horses. So let us continue our journey through the ages, and delve into the story of Felaroth and Eorl the Young, for it is through their bond that the line of the Mearas began, and their legacy lives on to this day. Let us travel ahead in time to witness the heroic deeds of Eorl and the might of his trusted companion, Felaroth. The story begins with Leod, a skilled horse tamer, who attempted to tame a captured white colt. Sadly, when he attempted to ride the horse, it threw him off, and he ended up hitting his head on a rock, resulting in his death. This left his son, Eorl, alone and orphaned. He was 16 at the time, I think. Filled with grief and anger, Eorl set out to hunt down the horse, responsible for his father's death. But when he finally found the horse, and when the horse was in his bow range, he did something unexpected. Instead of seeking revenge, he demanded that the horse serve him as payment for causing his father's death, and called out to the horse and said, "Come hither, man's bane, and get a new name." The horse then looked up at Eorl and walked over to him. Eorl tried to mount the horse, and to everyone's surprise, the horse submitted to his new master. The horse wouldn't allow anyone apart from Eorl to ride him, and he would ride him in elven fashion, and wouldn't accept any bridle or saddle to be placed upon him. The horse accepted Eorl's offer, and became his loyal companion. Eorl named the horse Felaroth, which means very valiant or very strong in Old English. It was said that Felaroth could understand the speech of men, and he and Eorl shared a bond unlike any other horse and rider before them. Years went by, and Eorl and Felaroth became legendary figures among their people. Eorl rode Felaroth when he came to the aid of Gondor, the victory which led Steward Cirion to grant the Eothead, the wide empty land of Calenardian, or the Riddermark, which later was changed to Rohan. Then they led their people to the incredible land that will become their new home. The Mearas, a breed of horses renowned for their speed, intelligence, and strength, were born and sired from Felaroth, and another horse from the land of the Riddermark, which Bima was a name used by the Northmen for Arome. As the great huntsman and horseman of the Valar, he and his steed Nahar were known to the horse-loving people of Rohan, who claimed that their great horses, the Mearas, had ancestors brought out of the west by Bima himself. The name Bima is also from the tongue of Rohan. Tolkien was inspired by the Old English word bime, or for the word trumpet. I think I pronounced that correctly. For more than 30 years after arriving in Rohan, Felaroth had the freedom of those wide grasslands. But the story of Eorl and Felaroth does not have a happy ending. 30 years after their journey to Rohan, they met their end fighting the Easterlings in the wold. They were buried together in a mound raised outside the gates of Edoras, a testament to their unbreakable bond and their bravery in battle. And a statue of Eorl and Felaroth were placed there in remembrance. Remember where Theoden and Gandalf in the movie The Two Towers were burying Theoden's son? I'm guessing that is right there, but I'm not sure if you can see the statues of them in the movie. Would definitely be cool to go back and see if you can see them. The story of Felaroth and Eorl is a reminder of the power of loyalty and the unbreakable bond between a horse and his rider. It is a story of courage, strength, grief, anger, and forgiveness. These were the Mearas, noble horses that lived as long as a man, nearly 80 years or longer, and had extraordinary strength and intelligence. And can't forget speed. Throughout their history, they would only allow themselves to be ridden by the Lord of the Mark, or his sons. This long tradition was broken by Gandalf, who managed to train the greatest of the Mearas of his time, Shadowfax, and rode him throughout the War of the Ring. The word Mearas comes from an Anglo-Saxon word meaning simply horses. Its singular form would be mare, but no character from Lord of the Rings ever uses that word. And remember the word Hross I talked about at the beginning of our journey? Pretty similar. In all this Tolkien Reading Day, we embark on a journey through the lineage of Shadowfax, the legendary horse of Middle-earth. But before we get to the main story of our adventure, let us remember the tales of Nahar and Felaroth. Nahar and Felaroth were two remarkable horses that played an essential role in the history of Middle-earth. Nahar was the faithful companion of Arome, one of the Valar, who rode him through the forests of Middle-earth. When Melkor's monsters appeared, Arome would blow his great horn and Nahar would charge ahead, scaring them off. Felaroth, on the other hand, was a trusty steed of Eorl the Young, the founder of the Rohirrim. Felaroth helped Eorl win many great battles, including the one that earned them the land of Rohan. What's fascinating is that Nahar and Felaroth started a line of horses that were just as remarkable as they were. Their descendants were the Mearas, a breed of horses known for their beauty, strength, and speed. And can't forget intelligence. These horses became the pride of the Rohirrim, and they played an essential role in the battles against Sauron. Having a horse as a companion is truly something special. The bond between Nahar and Arome, or Felaroth and Eorl, shows just how powerful that bond can be. These horses were not just animals, but true friends and partners who were always there for their riders, no matter what. Their legacy lived on through Felaroth's offspring, including the great Shadowfax. Also, it seems we have come to a turning point in our journey. Our conversation about Felaroth has led us through the fascinating lineage of the Mearas. These majestic horses have been a part of Middle-earth's history since the First Age, and their stories are as legendary as the heroes who rode them. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let me tell you a tale of one Meara in particular, the great Shadowfax. He was the horse of Gandalf the Grey, or Mithrandir, as he was known in Elvish, and later became the mount of Gandalf the White after his rebirth in the timeless halls of the Valar. Shadowfax was unlike any other horse in Middle-earth. His coat was as white as snow, and his mane and tail were like streams of silver, and his eyes shone like stars. He was as swift as the wind and could run like the very shadows themselves. It is said that he could understand the speech of men and elves, and that he would only allow those who were worthy to ride him. He was known to be the fastest and most noble of horses, and his loyalty to Gandalf was unwavering, and his bloodline is a force to be reckoned with. And so, it was that Shadowfax became the trusted companion of Gandalf, taking him on many adventures throughout Middle-earth. Shadowfax carried Gandalf through some of the most perilous moments of the War of the Ring. But the journey together was not without its challenges. For even the greatest of heroes can be tested, and Gandalf was no exception. There was Shadowfax by his side. He was able to face whatever lay ahead, always moving forward on their quest to defeat the Dark Lord Sauron. And so, we continue our journey following in the footsteps of Gandalf and Shadowfax, as we explore the epic adventure of the lineage of the Mearas. I come back to you now, at the turn of the tide. The board is set. The pieces are moving. We come to it at last. The great story of our journey is upon us. As if Gandalf probably once said, "Ever need of haste," to which Shadowfax replied with a nod, galloping off with incredible speed, and when the pair arrived at their destination, Gandalf could have remarked, "Shadowfax has a good horse sense. He knows when to run and when to rest." "All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us," said Gandalf. As we know, Gandalf the Grey first rode Shadowfax during the events preceding the Council of Elrond, after his escape from being imprisoned from Saruman at Orthanc. Gandalf was able to hypnotize a moth, so it would send word to Gwaihir, one of the eagles, for help, and he was carried to safety and set down near Edoras. So by this time, Gandalf was in need of a horse. Then he asked the suspicious Theoden and said to take any horse and be gone. And while under the influence of Green and Wormtongue, Gandalf chose Shadowfax. And Theoden was not so happy about finding out that Gandalf took his most prized horse. It seemed at first, though, Shadowfax refused to allow Gandalf to mount him, for he would run off whenever Gandalf drew near, and it took all of 3 days to manage to tame Shadowfax. And he would ride him in elven fashion like his ancestor Felaroth, with no bridle or saddle. Pretty epic if you ask me. "I did not know you rode bareback, Gandalf," Pippin said. "You haven't a saddle or a bridle." "I do not ride elf fashion, except on Shadowfax," said Gandalf. "But Shadowfax will have no harness." "You do not ride Shadowfax. He is willing to carry you, or not. If he is willing, that is enough. It is then his business to see that you remain on his back, and that you jump off into the air." "How fast is he going?" asked Pippin. "Fast by the wind, but very smooth. And how light his footfalls are." "He is running now as fast as the swiftest horse could gallop," answered Gandalf. "But that is not fast for him. The land is rising a little here, and is more broken than it was beyond the river. Gandalf used the great horse's speed to cross the vast wilderness between Rohan and the Shire in only 6 days. He dismissed the horse shortly before arriving in Rivendell at the Trollfells because the land was too uneven to travel on horseback, and Shadowfax had then returned back to Rohan shortly after." Gandalf tells the story, "It's the Council of Elrond." "There is one horse that might have been foaled in the morning of the world. The horses of the Nine cannot vie with him. Tireless, swift as the flowing winds. Shadowfax they called him. By day his coat glistens like silver, and by night is like a shade, and he passes unseen. Light is his footfall. Never before had any man mounted him. But I took him, and I tamed him. And so speedily he bore me that I reached the Shire, when Frodo was on the Barrow-Downs. Though I set off from Rohan, only when he set off from Hobbiton." And by now, a great friendship and bond had grown between them, and Gandalf would only have to call out to him to bring him back to his side. And it seems that they could also communicate with thought alone, for later in the books we see how Gandalf was able to summon Shadowfax by bending his thoughts towards him. He was next seen when Gandalf, now the White, called him when he, Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas needed horses to travel through Rohan. Legolas instantly recognizes the race of the horse, exclaiming, "That is one of the Mearas, unless my eyes are cheated by some spell." "Shadowfax, he is the lord of all horses, and he's been my friend through many dangers," said Gandalf. While for the most part, Gimli rode with Legolas upon a great horse named Arod, and Aragorn on Hasafal, provided by Éomer, on the way from Fangorn to Edoras, as we saw in the movie. Shadowfax carried both Gandalf and Gimli due to his greater strength and stamina when compared to the lesser steeds and the urgency of their journey. Gandalf gave a long whistle, so clear and piercing was the note, that the others stood amazed to hear such a sound come from those old bearded lips. Then, faint and far off, it seemed to them that they heard the whinny of a horse, borne up from the plains upon the eastern wind. They waited, wondering. Before long, there came the sound of hoofs, at first hardly more than a tremor of the ground, then growing steadily louder and clearer to a quick beat. "There are 3, said Legolas, gazing out over the plain. "See how they run. There is Hasafal, and there is my friend Arod beside him. But there is another, that strides ahead, a very great horse I have not seen his like before." "Nor will you again," said Gandalf. "That is Shadowfax. He is the chief of the Mearas, lords of horses. Not even Theoden, king of Rohan, has ever looked on a better. Does it not shine like silver, and run as smoothly as a swift stream? He has come for me. The horse of the White Rider. We are going to battle together." From then on, and especially after he is officially gifted him by Theoden, Shadowfax became Gandalf's permanent horse, earning the wizard the nickname the White Rider. Gandalf often uses Shadowfax's great speed to his advantage. For instance, during the Battle of the Hornburg, where he organized the scattered Rohirrim army under Erkenbrand and led the attack that broke Saruman's army. It was said by Theoden that there will never be a final horse in Middle-earth again. He was also instrumental in transporting Gandalf and Pippin from Rohan to Minas Tirith when Saruman believed that Pippin had the ring, after seeing him in Saruman's Palantir. Fool of a Took. Shadowfax tossed his head and cried aloud, as if a trumpet had summoned him to battle. Then he sprang forward. Fire flew from his feet. Night rushed over him, as he fell slowly into sleep. Pippin had a strange feeling. He and Gandalf were still as stone, seated upon the statue of a running horse, while the world rolled away beneath his feet, with a great noise of wind. Shadowfax was vital during the siege of Gondor, where Gandalf supported the army of Gondor, defending the Ramas Ekor, while regularly escorting medical transports to the city. Because of the horse's speed, he was also able to save Faramir, who had commanded the retreating army's rearguard from the attack by the Nazgul. During the later stages of the siege, Gandalf rode Shadowfax as he faced the Lord of the Nazgul at the Great Gate of Minas Tirith. Shadowfax, alone among the free horses of the earth, endured the terror, and stood, unmoving, steadfast before the Witch King. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, we read. A great black shape against the fires beyond. He loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, under the archway that no enemy ever yet had passed, and all enemy fled before his face. All save one, there, waiting, silent and still in this space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the free horses of the earth, endured the terror, unmoving, steadfast. Everyone fled before the Lord of the Nazgul, except Gandalf and Shadowfax. Tolkien even takes time here to point out that it wasn't just Gandalf that withstood the terror the Witch King brought. Shadowfax did too. Finally, Gandalf uses Shadowfax's swiftness to help him save Faramir from his crazed father Denethor, who had intended to burn his wounded son and himself alive on a funeral pyre. Shadowfax was also present at the final battle before the Black Gate, though it is unclear whether or not Gandalf fought on horseback. After Sauron's defeat and the end of the War in the Ring, Gandalf and Shadowfax would travel together to the Old Forest to speak to Tom Bombadil. It would have been great to talk to him about all his crazy stories and adventures. He afterwards carried Gandalf on the return journey to the north. It is believed that Shadowfax accompanied Gandalf across the sea and into the west. Also, to be clear, Tolkien did clear this up later in a letter. I think Shadowfax certainly went with Gandalf across the sea, though this is not stated, I should argue, so Shadowfax came of a special race being, as it were, an elvish equivalent of ordinary horses. His blood came from west over sea. It would not be unfitting for him to go west. Gandalf was not dying or going by a special grace to the western land before passing on beyond the circles of the world. He was going home. Being plainly one of the immortals, an angelic emissary of the angelic governors, Valar, of the earth, he would take or could take what he loved. Gandalf was last seen riding Shadowfax. He must have ridden to the Havens. And it is inconceivable that he would have ridden any beast but Shadowfax. So Shadowfax must have been there. A chronicler winding up a long tale, and for the moment moved principally by the sorrow and of those left behind, himself among them, might have made mention of the horse, but had the great horse also shared in the grief of sundering, he could have hardly have been forgotten. The letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm sure Shadowfax's ancestors would have been proud of him. So, Shadowfax, whose speed and strength bore Gandalf throughout the War of the Ring, helped bring back Faramir and stop Denethor from burning him alive, who brought Erkenbrand's army just in time to relieve the siege of Helm's Deep on the first light of the 5th day, who stood strong and proud and fearless against the Lord of the Nazgul when all around lost hope. Shadowfax received his reward at the end. Now, Shadowfax may not have had a voice in the story unlike the eagles or the trees as representatives of nature, but he was no less an active participant in the struggle. He chose to let Gandalf ride him, and to ride the war. No one made him, and without him, so much would have been different. And as we celebrate Tolkien Reading Day, let's raise a glass and take a moment to appreciate the incredible world that he created, and the way he was able to weave together themes of love, sacrifice, and redemption in a way that was both timeless and deeply human. And let's also remember the important role that animals, and specifically horses, like Nahar, Felaroth, and Shadowfax, played in his stories. Well, it has been an epic adventure through the lineage of the mighty Shadowfax and the Mearas. We've explored the history and lore behind these legendary horses, as well as delve into the healing effect that horses have on us. And I must say, it's been an absolute pleasure to share this journey with all of you. As my first podcast, it's been an incredible learning experience, and I'm still learning, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect with all of you through the love of Tolkien's works. Speaking of which, I hope you all had a wonderful Tolkien Reading Day. It was truly a joy to celebrate the life and works of J.R.R. Tolkien with fellow fans around the world. As we bring this episode to a close, I want to thank you all for tuning in and for your support. I look forward to continuing this adventure with you all in future episodes of the Inghild Hross podcast. Until then, my friends, may the light of Eärendil guide you on your own journeys to Middle-earth. Farewell, and until our next meeting. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Inghild Hross podcast.